Gentleman from California, seek recognition.
The parliamentary inquiry. As a combat veteran, I want to know what this House is going to do, but because a senior senator was attacked, illegally attacked, and drugged to the ground. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House now be adjourned.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Ask for a roll call vote.
Secretary.
Well, he was never arrested. He was never arrested, and nobody knew who he was when he came into the room creating a scene. He was removed from the room, and yes, they started to put handcuffs on him when he finally identified himself, and then that was stopped. They said he wants to talk to you. I said, sure, I'd love to sit down and visit.
So we got to bring you yet even more updates on the mostly peaceful Democrat senator, right? California Senator Alex Padilla, and what an absolute character this guy is, because this here is yet another example of Democrats simply picking the absolute worst political hills to die on, right? Whether that was the initial choice to make deportations their central issue, despite them being massively underwater on the issue of immigration in every single approval rating poll, or defending violent rioters, apparently now suggesting that the American people will somehow watch the video of him getting humiliated, kicked out of the press conference for being disruptive, and handcuffed because he was shoving and fighting with law enforcement, that they're going to look at all of it and say, you know what, Democrats, I really agree with you. This is normal behavior that Alex Padilla was engaged in. And of course, it is authoritarianism. It is a dictatorship for him to be kicked out, restrained, handcuffed, let go literally like 2 minutes later, because after all, right, who amongst us in our lives, right, normal American Joe in the middle of Michigan or Pennsylvania has not walked into an FBI building, created a disruption while someone is talking, and then cried the victim when we got kicked out of the building for our very expected behavior there. Nonetheless, again, guys, the Democrats doubling down here today, and I want to show you some of the absolutely ridiculous and comical protesting they're now doing, because you have multiple Democrat politicians, Alex Padilla himself included, by the way, getting choked up, right? Breaking down on the verge of tears for, this is so bad, guys. A guy got kicked out of a press conference. This is the end of the world, right? Of course, they actually did a protest today, like walking into John Thune's office, right? Trying to make a big statement about this. And again, I just want to say, utterly ridiculous, because the more people watch this video, as you'll see, the more people are starting to realize, or I think saw from the start, actually, what did he expect to happen? Like, seriously, what did Alex Padilla expect to happen? And please answer me this, guys, Democrats. Should he not have been kicked out? He was just asking questions. Oh, really? That's how you ask questions? It's just utterly ridiculous. We'll get into it. First, though, folks, do us a big favor here. Make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing, of course, as usual, is the best way to support these videos and ensure that we can keep bringing them to you. And okay, so on the front of the, of course, I love that, mostly peaceful Democrat senator, every single time we do this, just for people who haven't seen the context, I once again want to start here by just playing the brief video before he was handcuffed and all that, the actual reason why he got handcuffed, just so we can understand, right? This is apparently what Democrats are justifying as normal and acceptable behavior for anyone, including a U.S. senator, to be involved in. This is what they're defending.
Hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your hands off.
Many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty. They have been targeted.
Yes, of course, as we all know, this is what normal political activism looks like. I mean, again, like who in their lives has not done this type of crap? Like, are you serious, right? But okay, nonetheless, as you can see, the Democrats, as I stated earlier, are really trying to make a big deal out of this. As apparently, according to Representative Jamie Raskin, who is certainly a character in himself, he's saying, quote, "The brutal handcuffing of Senator Padilla is an affront to democracy. It's an affront to democracy to be kicked out of a press conference that you didn't have the right to a question for interrupting someone's speech." Okay, that was an affront to democracy. And of course, for not only doing that, but resisting and shoving law enforcement and then getting handcuffed for it, and also released 2 seconds later, by the way. Okay, he's not even being charged of a crime. He was not booked or anything. That's an affront to democracy, as you can see, right? I'm joining House Democrats to march to Senator John Thune's office and demand that he protect his colleagues from this out-of-control authoritarian onslaught. It's an out-of-control authoritarian onslaught because he showed up to the FBI building in the middle of her talking, just starts screaming like a freaking lunatic. They try to kick him out. He's pushing. He gets that's an authoritarian onslaught, guys. Okay, so anyways, here are the Democrats walking, as you can see, to protest the so-called authoritarian onslaught. So much authoritarianism, guys. So much onslaught. They're going to walk to John Thune's office. I'm sure... I'm not even a big fan of John Thune, to be clear, but I'm sure Senator Thune is just, he's quaking in his boots right now, right? Jamie Raskin's coming to knock on his door. Oh boy, here we go, right? We're all so intimidated. This guy right here states, as you can see, we're marching to Senator Thune's office. There must be accountability for the detainment of a senator. This is not normal. You know what else is not normal? Disrupting a press conference and then crying victim when you got kicked out. I don't know if that's not very normal, but as you can see right here, guys, aren't the Democrats so intimidating? Look at that sight. Wow. This is what democracy, this is how we fight the authoritarian onslaught. So utterly ridiculous, right? I once again here want to ask the question to all these Democrat politicians. Okay, so according to you, first of all, standing in the middle when someone is giving a speech, this was not actually even the taking questions section of the press conference. Also considering, by the way, Alex Padilla is not a member of the press. This is a press conference, not a congressional hearing. Nonetheless, there, right? So do I then have the right, for instance, to walk in? Let's say Jamie Raskin has time on the House floor. He's giving a speech about whatever. Do I have the right to walk in and say, just start screaming? Or just start screaming while he has the floor? And would it, is that, but I'm just asking questions, right? Hey, you can't kick me out. I'm asking questions. What is a transparency from government? Well, I'm just screaming, screw you, Jamie Raskin. Why are you such an idiot? I was asking questions, after all. Okay, but I'm not a senator. I'm not a congressman. Okay, but what if I said I was? I'm Congressman so-and-so. Then law enforcement would not have the authority to kick me out, right? You wouldn't command the sergeant of arms of the House to, remove the guy from the chamber. Okay. But, on top of that, let's say even it was a congressman. Let's say even it was a senator. Does that mean you have the right to just stand up and shout while you have the floor? Look, I don't condone disruptive behavior in general, but I genuinely, as a hypothetical situation, I'm very curious to see then, right? In the future, if that ever were to happen to a Democrat senator where someone stands up and is heckling them in the middle of their speech, will the senator condemn the forceful removal by Capitol Police from the grounds there? Or is that just legitimately asking questions? It is just so utterly ridiculous, right? But as you can see many Democrat senators are in their feels about this. As you can see, now Elizabeth Warren is on her way to the Senate floor to talk about the assault, guys. It was an assault on my colleague, Alex Padilla. This is a horrifying moment. It's a horrifying moment in our nation's history. That a guy was kicked out of a press conference for disrupting the press horrifying authoritarian onslaught. Again, Democrats somehow expect the American people to believe this, and they really think they're on the thumb of the pulse. This is how people feel. Take a listen here as Elizabeth Warren gets hysterical. Again here, guys, virtually on the verge of tears as apparently it is wrong to kick a guy out for disrupting a speech.
When Senator Padilla gets pushed, shoved, thrown to the handcuffed because he is asking questions, because he is engaging in the very oversight that senators are supposed to engage in, then what we're really talking about here is a Trump administration that just wants to shut down the ordinary functions of government. Look, I do a lot of oversight myself. I ask a lot of questions because that's how it works in a democracy. We use our words to hold people accountable. We don't use our fists. We don't shove. We don't try to knock people down. We use our words. That's what oversight is all about. And that's what I want to go to the floor of the Senate to talk about. I think it is time for every senator, every member of Congress, Democrat or Republican, to stand up and say what Donald Trump has done is wrong.
He was just asking questions, guys. And of course, that's what asking questions looks like, by the way. And of course, guys, in a democracy, we don't push, we don't shove, we don't use force. We do things peacefully, and we use our words. Look at that. Look at Senator Padilla using his words. So many words being used, guys. The pen is mightier than the forward lunge trying to push back law enforcement. Look at this. Look at this. This is asking questions. Look how many questions are being asked. Look, he's using his words, guys. This is how congressional oversight works. What are you talking about, right? So, I again asked the Democrats, it's like, okay, assuming this video is going to play all over mainstream media, who do you think people are going to side with, right? Really? He was just asking questions? Like, do you really expect anyone to believe you on this? I'm baffled by it, frankly, But, there you go. Democrats defending other Democrats with their grandstanding. As I said, right? Mostly peaceful Democrat senator. I mean, that's exactly what, the argument they're making here. So we go on, of course, who could forget Mr. Cory Booker himself? I mean, the most theatrical member there is to the Congress. You knew he was going to engage in some stupidity over this. And guys, frankly, I'm surprised he's not giving a 24-hour speech to protest against this. Okay, to talk all about how, Senator Padilla was, of course, using his words. He wasn't pushing and shoving because, of course, that's what we don't do that in a democracy, right? You don't shove people. Okay, but take a listen here as, Spartacus himself is about to declare that he is no longer Spartacus. Apparently, Alex Padilla is Spartacus. Take a listen.
And this son of Mexican immigrants who cleaned homes and served food, this man with equal dignity in this body, today was driven violently to his knees, as if made to kneel before the authority of the executive, because he was so-called disrespectful. That should offend the consciousness, not just of the other 99 members of this body, it should offend the conscience of this country. Because if you can make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive, when does it stop? He's a United States Senator. And if you could force him to kneel to his knees violently, when does it stop? What does it say to other Americans who want to speak up? What does it say to other Americans that want to exercise their constitutional duty? What does it say to other Americans this weekend when they want to peacefully protest? What does it say to other Americans from humble backgrounds who know poverty? That if a United States Senator who stands up to do his job can be made to heel, driven to his knees, violently handcuffed, what does it say? What message does it send? Everybody in this body should see that this is a crossroads. They treated a member of the United States Senate violently after he identified himself, dragged him out of a room, threw him upon the ground, and put him in handcuffs. Every member of this body should object to that. Why? Because the statement was that he was disrespectful. That is unacceptable. That is offensive. That is un-American. And so why is there silence right now? Why aren't my colleagues saying, I don't care if it's a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent? When you drive a man to his knees in the United States of America, that is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong. This is a test. This is a crossroads. This is a day in which the character of this body will be defined.
Okay. Cory, first of all, why is there silence right now? Actually, let's go through this one by one, right? Why is there silence? Because you have the floor and you're giving a speech. Yeah, guess what? First of all, you're not supposed to interrupt and start shouting in the middle of your speech, okay? So if for instance, your Republican colleague stands up in the middle of you having the floor and starts saying, Cory Booker, what do you think of so-and-so? That's not legitimate. I was just asking questions, right? That's not legitimate Senate oversight, or of course, any of those things. We also have the big lie here that is currently being spread, right? As you can see about, he identified himself as a senator. Well, you can see here the response. And by the way, you see this on camera, by the way, with regard to the incident in LA this afternoon. The senator in question was not wearing a security pin, yes, and physically resisted law enforcement when confronted. Okay, so he didn't identify himself actually as a senator. You can watch back the tape and clearly see he doesn't say anything about being a senator, of course, until actually he is already in an active shoving match. So it's loud, it's chaotic. By the way, why exactly, if they don't know who this guy is necessarily, should he be believed, right? If I just start doing that and say, oh, I'm a senator, okay, so they should just back off, right? Like, this guy could be a serious agitator. He could be trying to do something crazy. They just should let go of him. Oh, you're a senator. Okay, do whatever you want. Disrupt our event all you want. You don't have to follow rules. You're above the law because you're a senator. It's ridiculous. Our FBI personnel, yes, acted completely appropriately while resisting the Secret Service, and we are grateful for their professionalism and service. But according again here, guys, to Cory Booker, this is the test of democracy, guys. If you can make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive, when does it stop? I don't know. Maybe it stops when you stop disrupting people's speeches. It's really not that hard or complicated. But of course here, guys, now let's get to the main event here. Who could be remiss if we did not mention the actual meltdown of Alex Padilla himself, who is basically breaking down here in tears in response to what happened to him after he, again, I don't know what what did he think was going to happen? Here was his apparently official response to the entire situation as he played stupid games and objectively won stupid prizes.
Senator Alex Padilla, you guys have some questions. I'm going to read a brief statement. I will not be taking questions, but allow me to read my statement. I'm here in Los Angeles today, and I was here in the federal building, in the conference room, awaiting a scheduled briefing from federal officials as part of my responsibility as a senator to provide oversight and accountability. While I was waiting for the briefing with General Guillot, I learned that Secretary Noem was having a press conference a couple of doors down the hall. Since the beginning of the year, but especially over the course of recent weeks, several of my colleagues have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information in response to our inquiries. And so I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize, just as we've emphasized the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not detained. I will say this.
So what's the big deal? What are you crying about, man?
Is how this administration responds to a senator with a question? If this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country.
So there he goes again. He's just asking a question. That's all that went down. And of course, so the authoritarian takeover talking about that. Imagine, guys, imagine if they did this to other people. Think about the normal people of this country, the illegal aliens. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you stand up with them, okay, I'm not going to keep repeating myself. I think we basically get the point. But take a listen here later tonight, guys, as Kristi Noem went on to actually debunk basically the entire narrative about this. As you can see, she says, after he interrupted our press conference with law enforcement, yes, and law enforcement took him out, he resisted, they restrained him. not arrested, by the way. I met with Senator Padilla for 15 minutes. So, newsflash, guys, you were actually allowed to ask the question, but let's do this performative theater, but then cry the victim when the consequences of our political theater is logical and fairly restrained, I would argue, actually. And that happens, right? Nobody's above the law, by the way, though, guys. We probably disagree on 90% of the topics, but we agreed to exchange phone numbers, and we will continue to talk. That's the way it should be done in this country. I wish you would have acted the same way in the beginning, rather than creating a scene. Why is that? It's, of course, because he was not there to ask questions. He was there to engage in political theater. And again, guys, is now crying victim that the consequences of the theater are coming back to bite him for a brief moment, I guess. Take a listen, though.
What I would say is we were conducting a press conference to update everyone on the enforcement actions that are ongoing to bring peace to the city of Los Angeles. And this man burst into the room, started lunging towards the podium, interrupting me and elevating his voice, and was stopped, did not identify himself, and was removed from the room. So as soon as he identified himself, appropriate actions were taken. But I would say that I had a conversation with the senator after this. We sat down for 10 to 15 minutes and talked about the fact that nobody knew who he was. He didn't say who he was, that until he was had been lunging forward and people were trying to detain him for quite a period of time. And that this, we're leaders, we're public servants. And if he had requested a meeting, I would have loved to have sat down and had a conversation with him. That coming into a press conference like this is political theater. It's wrong, and it does a disservice to this country and the people who live here. So we sat down, had a conversation. We probably disagree on 90% of the topics, but we agreed to exchange phone numbers. We'll continue to talk and share information, and I think that's the way it should be in this country. I wish he would have acted that way in the beginning instead of creating a scene like this.
Seems pretty straightforward. By the way, Cory Booker, he was not just disrespectful, he was disruptive. Mostly peaceful, some would say, but disruptive, yes. What do you guys expect to happen? These Democrats are just such ridiculous people. Nonetheless, guys, we'll close with this. Apparently, Speaker Mike Johnson is now going out and saying, yes, newsflash, Alex Padilla's conduct at Kristi Noem warrants a censure from the Senate, quote, at a minimum. That is, of course, true. We're not going to have senators charging cabinet secretaries. Again, seems like pretty common sense. Although, frankly, I have to say, not sure if John Thune, of all people, is going to be the one to lead that censure, because John Thune doesn't really like to do much of anything, arguably even worse than Mike Johnson. But, okay, nonetheless, it probably is something that should happen, even if it's performative. Take a listen for yourself.
Of the House,
yes,
the constitutional officer of this branch.
Yeah, and what of it? I mean,
the idea that you said this is a Senate issue. This isn't. These are members of Congress.
Yeah, but the Senate does its disciplinary actions over there, and we do ours over here. We have a certain set of measures, as you all know, and it ranges from censure to removal from committees to ultimately expulsion from the body.
And do you support that for the senator?
It's not my decision to make. I'm not in that chamber, but I do think that it merits immediate attention by their colleagues over there, and that they need. I think that behavior at a minimum is. It rises to the level of a censure. I think there needs to be a message sent by the body as a whole that is not what we are going to do. That's not how we're going to act. We're not going to have branches fighting physically and having senators charging cabinet secretaries. We got to...
Of the House,
yes,
the constitutional officer of this branch.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree, but like I said, I'd be very surprised if anything happens. But nonetheless, there you have it, guys. The update today on the mostly peaceful Democrat senator. What a show. What a riot. All right, with that said, though, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.